The greatest investment you'll ever make isn't in your career, your home, or your success, but in the legacy you leave through your family. Every father leaves a legacy, yet too many men are carrying the weight of fatherhood alone. Through real stories, biblical wisdom, and honest conversations, the Dad2Dad Collective equips fathers to overcome life's challenges, strengthen their families, deepen their faith, and lead with purpose. Together, we're raising stronger men, building stronger families, and shaping the next generation. The Dad2Dad Collective, for fathers, from fathers, led by the Father.
So welcome to the Dad2Dad Collective podcast. We're here to help fathers strengthen their families, deepen their faith, and lead with purpose. So today we're talking about a topic that many men wrestle with. Most fathers understand the importance of providing financially for their families, but what if God's calling on fathers is much bigger than paying the bills and putting food on the table? So joining me today is Eric Little. Very excited to have you here, brother. He's a veteran. I'm going to read through this. A pastor, leadership consultant, and father of three. After serving our country in the U.S. Army, Eric dedicated his life to helping people discover their God-given purpose through ministry, counseling, leadership, development, and community service. His passion is helping individuals become who God created them to be, which makes him the perfect guest for today's conversation on the true calling of fatherhood. So, Eric, welcome to the Dad2Dad Collective podcast, brother. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you for having me. You made that sound real good.
Well, it's you, man. It's who you are.
Sometimes you don't like to hear it back to yourself, but yeah, man, that's it is who I am. So I agree with that.
Yeah, man. No, I got to tell you, I'm glad you're here because I know how busy you are, and I know you get how much this matters, right? When it comes to talking to other dads. And one of the things we're going to spend time with, right? The title of this podcast is Fatherhood is More Than Providing.
Yeah.
All right. Oftentimes, I just remember growing up, you know, that was my father's main role, is being the provider. But the challenge that I had is there were times where I needed him to be more present in other areas, and he wasn't able to always do that, right? Yeah. So I talked to a lot of dads, and there's always this kind of struggle with providing and being present, right? Yeah. And so I just want to kind of get your take on, and I know we got a couple things lined up for the group today that's listening. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, that's one of the toughest, I think, tensions to wrestle with, right? Yeah. Because if we only see providing as providing, then we create a hard line. It's a little bit more convoluted than that, you know. So I think from a father's perspective, providing isn't simply putting money on the table, as we've already said, but it's also fulfilling a purpose that you've been given. And by virtue of fulfilling that purpose, the fruit of that is provision for your family. So I think the tension, at least from my experience, you know, I had a similar, you know, my father was a great provider. And then I think what I needed was more communication, and we can kind of equate that to time, but sometimes as I'm growing older and wiser, it's not really the time as much as it is the communication. I'll give you an example. You know, in the garden, you know, Adam's first purpose was to actually work, and that work was purposeful. And then from there, you know, God was like, hey, he needs a helper. So we got a woman comes into play. He names her woman. I call you Eve.
Yeah.
And then after that, be fruitful and multiply. So the children come. But the purpose never changed. The purpose was to work. So if the purpose is to work, to have provision, then how do I incorporate my family and my purpose? And that actually helps with the tension of this is provision and this is time with family, as if they're against each other. And I think we were on the phone one time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm taking a walk. You know, I had a little bit of time for lunch before my next meeting. You called, and I was out there with my son. And what I was trying to teach my middle son is, hey, this is what purpose looks like. If you want to, I'm discipling him in purpose. So my work isn't foreign to him, and my work isn't against him. My work becomes a discipleship tool to say, when you become older, this is what you're going to have to do, provide for your family. So that sting of my dad's not here or my dad's out providing, no, I see what he's doing. he's transforming lives, or he's sowing into people, and by virtue of me being next to him, I get to see that, you know?
Yeah.
So that would be my initial take on how do we take them from being against each other, provision versus time with family, or provision versus investment with family, and marry the two, you know?
Yeah. And I love that, because what we're not saying is that there's no value in providing, right? We're not telling men to go out and quit their jobs and, stay at home. That's not what we're saying, right? We're saying you still show up for your family, you still provide, and in addition, you keep in mind that there are other responsibilities you have as a man, or as a dad even, to your children and your family, right? So I love that. And we model that. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say too, is that there's something within us that needs to be modeled, so that they get that there's a value in working and providing, and then there's a value in being present. And so as they see that, right, we're stretching them and hopefully building them better as fathers.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I think, too, and if you don't mind me sticking this a little bit longer, we have to, this is from a Christian lens, remove the cultural sting of what is intentional time, right? And so we have this view sometimes that more time spent with family equals a happier family. And then sometimes when that happens, because in us as men, as fathers, this innate ability or innate calling to fulfill our purpose, which is what initially started in Genesis, right? Then we become miserable. And we're like, man, I'm spending so much time with family, which is not, I love that, right? But it's also, am I modeling what it is to be a father who fulfills a God-given purpose? Yeah. So that's where the balance has to come into play.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, because I think some men who are listening to this who don't have a lot of time because of their work could be feeling a sense of conviction about it, right? And so on the other end of the spectrum, right, there is something to be said about men who overwork and who are never involved with their kids' lives, especially when things are happening in their homes and they're wondering, like, what is going on? Why are these things taking place? And, scriptures talks about how we're called to leave an inheritance to our children, right? So there is a mandate on us to work, to provide and leave something behind, right? That's our legacy piece. But the other part of the legacy piece that I think sometimes often doesn't get addressed as we're providing is, how are we making sure that our kids are great disciples, are great young women and men of Christ as they grow up, and how are we modeling that for them? So if we can't represent that to them and challenge them and deal with real issues, then things get lost, and then you start to see, right, this fatherless generation, even though the father's there. I can't tell you how many times, man, I've heard of stories of where people are like, yeah, my dad was there, but he wasn't there, right? He was present, he was around, but when I was going through things or I needed stuff to take place, I met a kid who told me he had to have his stepbrother teach him how to tie a tie, because his dad was just never around, right? So it's like, how do dads show up? And this is a question to you. How do dads show up in a way where not only are they balancing that, but they're looking at their margin and they're saying what's too much and what's too little? Yeah.
I give my children permission. Like, I know that I'm a busy person, and I tell them and I show them, this is what your father's called to do. I don't want you to get lost in the process. You have permission to say, Dad, I need you. And that permission is like a balance. It's hey, you know that I'm going to be working. You know I'm going to be fulfilling my purpose. And we have intentional time. We'll do like game nights, and, we've done devotionals together and stuff like that. But I said, if you need me, say, Daddy, I need you. Because I'm not going to be able to see everything. And my wife is a great help. She's like, hey, I think you should spend some more time with, Eliana today. All right, done. And my daughter's an artist. And I think this is a good time for just a testimony, man, that weighed on my heart and almost made me cry. Like, I was out with her on a, father-daughter date. We were at Panera Bread. And we don't do anything. We don't say a lot of things. She's very comfortable with her social life, talking to me about it. And I just try to listen and, put guardrails around, things.
What she says.
But we, we're just sketching and drawing. And so we leave Panera, and it's this homeless guy. And you know how when the Lord just kind of pulls on you,
Yeah.
you just got to do it. So I went out and talked to him and just wanted to hear his story and pray for him. And I was going to offer him something. I remember I had some blankets in the car. And when I turned around, she already had it ready. And for me, that was a testament of she knows what our purpose is. She knows what our kingdom calling is to take care of those who can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And she was a part of that journey without me even having to say anything. So that is a testament to the discipleship, knowing that I've been busy, but she's watching because I bring my children along with me to fulfill that purpose. And so in that, it's the balance between here's our purpose, going back to the same thing, and if you need me, speak up, and obviously they have to feel empowered to do so because sometimes children can feel intimidated by their parents. But I try to break that ice to say, I'm going to schedule time for us, but if you need more, say, hey, Dad, I need more time. I will block and X out everything to say, hey, let's spend some time together. So I think that's how we open up the door of communication that as children, when I was a child, I didn't think I could do.
Yeah.
Because I never was given that permission,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think one thing I do is I practice as I look at my schedule every Sunday. I kind of look, that's my day of like rest and reflection and then next steps for the week, right? I'm looking at my schedule and I'm asking the question, how much time am I making for my family?
Yeah.
Because they need me too.
Yeah.
I need to be just as available to them as I am everything else.
Yeah.
And that gets hard because in my line of work as an entrepreneur, there are times where I'm like, man, but if I take this and don't do this other thing, right, is it going to cost me, right, this job or this opportunity?
Yeah.
And so there's something to be said about your faith walk, right? Even for those men who aren't entrepreneurs, who are working 9 to 5s, right, who feel the need to pick up every call or be available at every meeting. Even man, I can't tell you how many guys I know who take meetings on their off days.
Yeah.
And they're salaried people. And I'm like, you got to set the precedent.
Yeah.
If not, you're telling your job and your family that work is more important than anything else, and they have the right to ask of that time, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I was thinking about as I'm processing all this, Eric, what you're saying, there was a stat that came out that said 1 in 4 children go without a father in the home. But then the three and 4 children who have the father in the home, right? Like, how present are they?
Yeah.
How available are they? And then the other part is, how are they working on themselves?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm home and I'm not working on myself, but I'm constantly frustrated because I'm not taking time to rest. I'm not taking time to, get into a place where I'm rethinking about the future and what's coming up.
Yeah.
How am I actually going back to a place where I'm like, all right, now I can come and take care of the family? Because fathers set the tone in their home. There are days where before I walk into the house, I have to choose how I'm going to show up, no matter how tired I am, because my family doesn't know, right, what happened during that day, right? And if I had a bad day and I come in and they see that, and let's say my wife is going through something and she was with my son all day, now I'm just adding more flame to the fire. And the tone, I recognize this, the tone that I set comes from me being able to recognize, okay, I'm working a lot, but I need to take steps back. And I need a planned time where I can enter into that space fully aware, fully present, and ready, right? And then the second part of that is I need to make sure I build in blocks of time so I don't feel as bad when I'm working.
Yeah.
Because I know I have time coming up with my son or my wife or even another brother, right? Because how many times do we not make time for that either? Man, brother, I just thought about this. That models something for our kids.
Oh, yeah.
If we're not spending enough time with other brothers in the Lord, right? Like, what does that say to our kids?
Man, you're in the vein. So here's how the family structure, and from my lens, and I believe our lens, my wife will always take precedence. Always.
Yeah.
We have to raise our children together, but they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to be with my wife.
Yeah.
That's the tone I set first, right? And I make sure they know that. So, because if they don't, then you're being pulled too many ways, and they'll think they have something that they don't have. And I want them to model that in their homes. When they become husbands and wives, right, and fathers.
So I was thinking as we were sharing just the importance of spending time with other men of God, right?
Yeah.
Like as we talk about setting the tone for our home and modeling certain things for them and being present. Like, can you talk about the importance of what it means to actually, be in community with other brothers and why that's important for our kids to see that?
Yeah, man. I used to wrestle with this a lot, right? Because when you meet amazing people, you just want to spend time with them, and especially those who are aligned in vision, and you all can support and collaborate, towards a specific goal or outcome, and you just love spending time with your brothers, and other families. And it wasn't until recently where, the Lord started really dealing with me about patterns that he set. And notice the pattern of discipleship, right? He had 12 disciples, but when he really needed to be or have some intimate information to share, he took 3 of them with him. It was always Peter, James, and John.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Same 3. And then in Luke chapter 10, he sends out 70. So there was more who were present, right? But of those 70, you had 12. And of those 12, you had 3 who was really close. So I started modeling my life around that, right? I have 12 who I will probably talk to at minimum on a monthly basis. We touch base at least once a month. And of those 12, I have 3. And those 3 can interrupt me. Like, it has to be important, but they can kind of interrupt my family time, right?
Yeah.
Because my children are going to need that. They're going to need strong anchors to hold on to, or strong people in their life to say, hey, I want to either disciple you or be discipled or walk this journey with you. So to your point, I'm learning to model the model that Jesus set before us and have that as a template for my family, right? And then also, too, because they need to see that, they need to develop healthy relationships, social interaction. They need to have something outside of their family that they can cling to. Because here's the thing, we can't choose what families we're born into.
Yeah, absolutely not.
We can choose our friends, though.
Yeah.
And they're going to have friendships that are closer than their sibling relationships and their parental relationships. And we only have them, we're stewarding their lives for a season. So it's important that we give them as much modeling as we can before they go out on their own,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And brothers, good brothers, right? I would definitely add to, before I say this final thought, is like they should be able to pass your litmus test, right? Are they, and maybe you need to create one if you don't have one, right? Are these people I trust around my kids? Are these people I trust to speak into my kids' lives if I'm not around, or if they need somebody else to talk to? Are they people who, model the values that I model or that I care about, right?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about our son. When we did his presentation, we got 3 godparents, 3 sets of godparents. So he's got 6 godparents. No, I was like, listen, I had enough things come up with my family to recognize that now that I was creating a family of my own, we're going to do things different. And so I remember when my wife, we were talking about it, she's like, we got 3 couples in mind that we really love and care about who actually passed that test I was telling you about, right? And she goes, I don't know which one of the 3 couples we should choose. And I was like, who said we have to choose?
There you go.
It's our kid. Let's just get all 3. And we literally asked all 3. I put a whole commitment together that they all signed.
Let's go.
Stating that they were going to be involved in my son's life, birthdays, expectations for them to be involved in our marriage if needed. I mean, like, I laid it out. And so what's funny is they know who I am. I'm very like, we're no nonsense. We're going into it. Yeah. And they've been thankfully like very supportive and present and available when we've gone through some of our toughest times. Yeah. So I think it's important that men start to think that way. Yeah. Because I think if we're in the hustle and bustle of just doing life, we forget about the important things that actually could make a significant change in the legacy we're trying to leave.
Yeah, you were modeling it already.
Yeah.
That's your 3. Yeah. It sounds like you know who your 3 out of the 12 are, right?
Yeah, so, I didn't think about it like that until now, but yeah.
It's a framework, man, that if we use, I feel like, in most aspects, we try to overcomplicate life.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. And our greatest example made it so easy. That's why his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And just like that, we're trying to say, how can I put most of my burdens when I'm in a bind and my family's going through an emergency on one other family? And I love how you just broke that framework. No, bring 3 families in. If we got 3 families in mind, that's it. So all the time.
And to your point about the disciples, Jesus didn't have to call these 12 with him. He could have just did it by himself. He had all power and authority to do so. He could perform signs and wonders without them.
Yeah.
But there was something to be said about how he was fathering those disciples in some ways.
Yeah.
Right? He was being their ultimate teacher. And I think that's what we're called to do as dads, is to be the ultimate teachers and stewards of our kids, of our spouses, of our families.
Yeah.
And so if we don't take that just as serious as Jesus, but call ourselves believers, and there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Very true.
So I love that you said that. So, brother, as you're kind of like thinking through, right, other ways that you've, beyond providing, shown up for your family, what else comes to mind?
Investment, and not in the sense of money, but seeing their gift. Sometimes I'm getting a little older and wiser now, but there's always this thing that I aspire to finish before my life is over. Like there's some clear visions that have to happen. And if I'm not careful, I'll lose sight on what the vision is for their life, or even how to help them discover it. So I think one of the main things I've been doing lately is invest in the gifts that I already see in them. My daughter is one of the most creative beings I've seen in a long time. It's funny because I was just having this conversation with my wife. All 3 of my children, they have a specific aspect of me that I see. And I'm sure Destiny sees some things in her too, but my daughter's just like just one of the greatest artists. And me, I used to love art. Right now, I'm like, I don't have time for it. And it's like one of the most painful things to do when you're like a perfectionist. So now when I do art, I'm like, I never finish because I'm like, that perfectionism comes out. But anyway, so I see that in her, so I invest in that in her. And with my middle son, he in his events in rowing, he's like 5th in the nation against 14-year-olds. He's 12.
Nice.
So I'm like, brother, I'm sorry, you're not playing another sport,
Yeah.
So, but I'm investing in, hey, let's make sure it's swimming good. Let's make sure these things are good, but let's keep Christ at the center. So while you're out there, you're representing something more than yourself. And my youngest, he's a storyteller. He's a dreamer. He's a visionary. And so I'm trying to figure out how to best make space for that to happen. There's a lot of times he has an engineer brain. He likes to build stuff. So that's through whether it be Legos or robotics. And so it's also investment in what I see in them. And I think being intentional about that, if nothing else, creates the avenue for them to explore and grow in that, So that's probably another way that I'm trying to do that.
Well, it sounds like, too, what you also want to do is cover them so that they feel comfortable enough where they can make mistakes, try things out, and then come back around again.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And I think that, too, has been challenging coming from the South when there's a generational thing about mistakes, right? In the South where there used to be, slavery as a black man and all this. We had to break off some of that stuff out of our family, and give them permission to make mistakes so they know how to do it right. Instead of being afraid to make mistakes, and then they'll never try anything.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think a lot of credit to my wife as well as like being the ear and the voice to say, hey, we can be tough on this aspect, but this aspect has to give a little bit. And we found our balance, with my boys. Look, I have them, doing hard things because I want them to be strong men, but I don't do it without a purpose. And so they understand the purpose. And now since they understand the purpose, they reap the benefits. And so I had my son Joshua, plays 5th in rowing. Before he even went to school, we used to homeschool him. He would complain a little bit, but now he's like, he went to school and saw, with his peers, and he said, hey, Dad, thank you for being hard on me. Like, I see that I'm set apart. And I said, now that you see it, it's not for you to leverage that and make yourself arrogant. It's to help those other boys do the same.
Yeah. To rise up to the next level. Yeah, I get that. Well, and what I like is, we're talking about being more than a provider, is you're also talking to about time and investment into their gifts, right? So and each kid you said is individually unique. And man, how tempting or how tempted we become to literally try to form kids the way that we want them to be.
Yeah.
And how much do we lose sight of the fact that God has given us kids with unique gifts and abilities, and it's our job to steward those gifts. Not the way we think they should be stewarded, but looking at God and saying, God, how do you want me to steward that and them? It's a great reminder. One thing I thought about is time. And that, like, you're taking time to do that. I went to this retreat that was, stewarded through John Eldridge and that ministry, Wild at Heart. And one of the things he said was, fathers, their main responsibility to their children is to let them know that they are worthy of their time. That kids can see them and say, my dad sees that I have worth and value in their time. So my little guy just started t-ball.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's hilarious watching these kids run after a ball and then cry when they can't catch it. And a couple got hit in the face. That was interesting too. But I remember I went out to the field, and I'm not the coach or the assistant coach, but I talked to them, and we get along, and I said, hey, I'm gonna help out. I was like, I'm gonna be on the field. I said, I'm not even asking at this point. I'm just telling you. And they're like, yeah, we need the help, because kids are just running all over. They can barely find first base. You're just, trying to coordinate things. And I'm standing next to my little guy on second base yesterday. And, I'm teaching him how to stand. I'm telling him to prepare, once they hit the ball, have his glove out, that kind of thing. And he looks at me and he goes, I love you, Papi.
Oh, man.
And it was just like the best feeling.
Yeah.
My wife later, she comes to me and she says, hey, I'm going to say this before we get busier, because I forget to say it once we get back into, the groove of life. She says, but you're doing something for our son that I know was never done for you, or modeled the way that you would have wanted. I said, what do you mean? She says, you're showing up for him.
Yeah.
And so whether he chooses to do baseball, to your point about gifts, or something else, you're letting him know he matters.
Yeah.
And you're just there. And so man, it just kind of like melted me like ice for a second, because I'm like, yeah, that's what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
I worked the whole day, but I stopped just to be available, to be present, and say, hey, you matter, and you mean something to me. So something to keep in mind, man, as we're kind of thinking through. But the one point I think you and I were talking about, Eric, is the assignment in creating disciples.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm bringing this up because there are dads who don't know enough about their faith to sometimes even feel confident enough to teach them about the gospel.
Yeah.
Right? Either because they're newer to the faith or they haven't explored it as much. What would you say to those dads?
Do it anyway. Like, one of the things that we have to diminish as a culture, especially the pride in being a father, is that we have to know it all. I say crack open the book, read it with your family, ask them questions. Maybe they shed some light that inspires you. I think that's less relative than the fact that you're with them and y'all are seeking together.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When Jesus asked Peter, he says, who do men say that I am? That's an open invitation just to hear feedback, right? And he knows the answer.
Absolutely.
But he's asking Peter the question, and it gives them the boldness to try. So even if I'm at the table and I don't know all the answers, let's seek together. What do you think this said? I mean, he models it perfectly, right? And then now when Peter gives the right answer, man, we know this came from the Lord, right? And then not only this affirms Peter in some way. So that's a perfect example of how to do ministry with your family. Hey, I may not have the answer, even though Jesus had the answer, but he's still asking the questions. Man, that's the right answer. So not only are they being discipled, but they're being affirmed, and they're more confident in what they believe in their faith because of it. So you don't have to have the answers. The answers are all in the book. Y'all just read it together and be present. And it's not limited to a book, right? It's also about your character and what they see you do.
Absolutely.
And then going back
it's
to
a lifestyle.
the beginning.
Yeah.
It's going back to the beginning. Come with me, right? If you think to release the tension from the provision and the time aspect, bring them with you. Hey, I can't bring my children to work. Well, bring them to work through stories. Bring them to work through Legos. Bring them to work through whatever you do.
Yeah.
Make the space and make the time. Because the more we stop trying to guard our kids and separate our lives from what it is that we do in the world, the more prepared they'll be for the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So I think do it anyway. Even if you don't feel ready, do it anyway. You know?
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said if you don't know, right? That's where you surround yourself with brothers who can help you figure that out.
Yeah.
Because we know this. They're going to get to a place where they're going to start asking questions.
Yeah.
Because they have to determine if that faith is going to be something that they're just going to follow for the sake of what their families have told them.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that they're going to own for themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's our job, is to steward them well enough so that they understand there are battles that you're going to face in life. But these are the strategies and the ways you can take them on through Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? And if we can get them excited about that, then they'll start to see that through us and our lifestyle, which is kind of what you're alluding to here, is they'll model that and hopefully walk that out too.
Yeah.
But it does start with us. So I love that perspective. That's where it's at, man.
That's where it's at, bro.
That's where it's at. And, I thought about this too, is, for the dad that doesn't know where to start, I think it's important to not, you said have it all together, right? Not fake the front.
Yeah.
Say, I honestly don't know enough about the Bible.
Yeah.
Let's read it together. Let's figure it out. Let's invite so-and-so into the conversation. Or let's watch this. Man, YouTube's got so many stuff out right now.
Yeah.
Like, you can literally discover it together, watch episodes together on, Bible commentary and other things that'll help teach you to walk those steps out. But then the other part of this is, it goes back to time and not being just a provider. Get into a church.
Yeah.
A good church that will not only provide programs that are accessible for you and that child to learn together, or children in some cases, but also people in your life that'll also steward you along as you're kind of getting involved, right?
Yeah.
And so, to your point, man, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
They have a really fun one. It's called, I think it's Bible Animations. Man, it's some deep revelation in there for parents. Okay, so we usually watch that with the children, and it unpacks and unlocks a lot of stuff. So there's a hint for y'all who are trying to dig into the scriptures or don't know where to start. Bible Animations, I believe it's called. It's a whole YouTube channel, and we just sometimes just watch a 20-30 minute topic, and it's like it blows my mind sometimes. So yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's important to note to all the dads that are listening, we're coaches in our kids' lives.
Yep.
That's literally what we are. We're here to coach them through. And we know that in order to win games, right, or win the game of life, if you will, it's our job to continue to develop ourselves so that we can position them with the best strategies possible to actually achieve not just successful metrics in the world, right, or sports or academics or whatever it is, but it's also taking it back to what does the gospel say about who you're called to be as a young man or a young lady, and how do I continue to build and cultivate that in you, and how do I make time for you so that you know that you matter at the end of the day, and I'm here to steward that more. I appreciate you sharing. Eric, is there any final thoughts you have for us as we kind of come to a close in this podcast?
No, man, I really think, man, if we, as fathers, if we look at the life of Jesus and look at what God intended in the garden, we'll find what a healthy relationship with our children would look like. So my final thought would be, don't just read the Bible and think about, okay, what does this mean? But also put yourself in the shoes and model it. Put yourself in the shoes of Jesus and model it the best you can in your context, in your cultural context. And I believe we'll find that if we do it in faith and we do it in love, that God will grace us, he'll be merciful, and our children will be better for it, And I think that's probably the best thing I could say, is we have an example, and we just need to follow it.
Amen to that, brother.
Amen.
Well, thank you for being on this episode. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your work and what you're up to?
So a lot of what I do is helping nonprofits. So if you want to connect, you can go to the Coalition Chicago, which is the Coalition CHI.org. And, I'm Eric_Neal on socials. So if you want to find me on socials and connect that way, I'll be more than happy to reach back out to you.
I know you're modest in putting that out there, so I have no problem also, shedding light on brothers in the Lord that I think are doing some great stuff. And so you definitely are, man, which is why I invited you to this podcast. And thank you for supporting this vision.
Yes, sir.
You mind closing us out in some prayer for the dads that are listening out there?
Oh, yes, sir. Father, I thank you just for this opportunity to break bread with my brother Everett and the mission, the vision that he has for fathers around the world, actually. So, Lord, thank you for the call that's on his life. And, Lord, I just pray that as the fathers who are listening, who may feel guilt or shame, Father, that you take that from them and show them your love, the perfect love of a father, and inspire them not only to stay where they are, Lord, but actually just increase and learn more of you so that they can be an example to their children. So, God, I pray for breakthrough for families right now in the name of Jesus, and I pray for breakthrough and for mended homes and mended relationships, and Lord, even from fathers who haven't had a great father. Lord, I pray that you mend those relationships, those that you're able to do so. So, Father, thank you for this time, and I just bless each and every person listening. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for listening. If today's episode added value to your fatherhood journey, remember, strong fathers don't happen by accident. Keep investing in what matters most. Head over to Dad2Dad Collective.com or sign up here for future episodes and become part of the brotherhood. We'll see you next time.